Hey guys, what's going on? Ultimus here. Today's video I wanted to go over some last minute thoughts and predictions and things of that sort for warriors. Mostly arms and protection, looking at, of course, gladiator stance, because those are the two specs that most people are trying out and playing for PvP because the arena season is just around the corner. So I wanted to address the state of the class, my thoughts, and kind of touch base on some of the predictions and thoughts I had throughout the course of the beta. So I felt some follow-up was necessary. As most of you are aware, Arms is not, of course, in the best place, but it is not in a horrible place either. And I know at that point some people are already raging and smacking on their keyboards and like, oh, Arms sucks, you don't know what you're talking about. And hey, maybe I don't. But I think if you talk to any good warrior and anybody who has been around long enough can tell you that Arms itself is doing a good amount of damage. You can't argue with that. Arms is doing a decent amount of damage, and if you're not having any luck with that, this may sound kind of jerky and messed up, but you're probably playing it wrong. I would consider re-looking at your rotation. However, still the biggest problem is the lack of abilities, being forced to use Warbling as a filler, and not having anything to defend yourself with. We're way too squishy, and we bottom line need a healer. I mean, having a healer was always nice, and it made things a lot smoother, especially for the warrior playstyle, but now it is definitely essential. So that's not to say that, of course, Arms is going to be completely without hope for the arena season, but due to its current state, I feel like you are definitely going to see a lot more warriors running protection spec in Gladiator's Resolve. I know for a fact I am planning on running that myself, at least for the majority of the arena season. We'll see how it plays out as we get farther into the season and things start to pan out, but most definitely for at least capping points, I'm looking at playing Gladiator stance. Let's take a look at talents real quick just to kind of go over those, because some things have changed and there were some predictions that I made and things like that. Some were obvious. Some things that definitely caught me by surprise, so I figured it's good to be genuine and step back and address some of those things. So first off, of course, on a level 15 tier, we have Juggernaut, Double Time, and Warbringer. I still feel like any of these are a decent choice at this point because none of them particularly outshines the other. I just prefer having my charge on a 12-second cooldown instead of a 20. Double Time can totally work if you know how to work that around, and again, if it's your playstyle, I've seen many people make it work. And of course, Warbringer if you are hellbent on that stun instead of a root, but then of course you're taking the 20-second cooldown time instead of the 12. And as for me, I just prefer that 12-second charge time. I prefer to keep my mobility up. But again, that could change going into the arena season. I might just decide that stun is too valuable, so we'll see what it looks like. At a level 30 tier, Enraged Regeneration is still the only talent that is worth taking. Second Wind is garbage, and so is Impending Victory, unfortunately. And this is pretty much across the board, any spec. Fury, Arms, Protection, Gladiator stance. It doesn't matter. Enraged Regeneration is the only way to go, which is unfortunate, but it is the way it is. In our level 45 tier, this is definitely where oh, come on, Corehound. I'm trying to record here, buddy. Shake my fist at you. In level 45 tier, this is definitely one that caught me by surprise, and because I wasn't expecting warriors to have some of the rage issues that we were having, because on beta, the rage was pretty good. And so I was running with Sudden Death and Slam, but Sudden Death got nerfed back down to 10% chance, which was not good. I mean, 25%, it was doable. It was a bummer that there was no extra bonus damage from your extra rage. It was just a solid hit, which was fine, but the 25% chance kind of made up for it. But this is definitely a talent that you're going to see more success with Fury. Slam is still decent, except for the fact that it really doesn't do much damage. I mean, if you really want to use it, you can. But having Taste for Blood just helps with your rage generation so much, because you can rend up targets. It's going to keep your damage and pressure through the roof on targets, especially because you can get away with bleeding pets and things like that. So it just helps keep your rage going quite nicely, so it's able to feel those whirlwinds and those mortal strikes. And of course the Colossus Smash and the Thunderclaps and all the things that we're going to need. Plus having that extra rage for Execute when it comes time to pop it is super nice, because Execute is one thing that actually works quite nicely for warriors. That's probably the best thing about Arms right now, is the fact that when Execute goes off, Execute works. And so that's a plus, and I really can't complain about that. So Taste for Blood really does seem to be the best talent for choice right now for Arms, though I do kind of lean towards still using Slam every once in a while. But go-to has really been Taste for Blood. I really can't try to play that off any other way. In our level 60 tier, I still prefer Stormbolt over Shockwave or Dragon's Roar. Dragon's Roar for any spec is definitely garbage, I feel. the damage isn't good enough, and having a knockdown for half a second just isn't worth it to me. Shockwave I can see being good if you're playing the right kind of threes comps and things like that, if you can still pull off that triple shockwave, but Stormbolt is just too reliable. Again, 30-second cooldown, baseline, range stun, does some damage, and 4-second stun, like it's legit. I've been having a lot of success with it, and that's probably what I will plan on running, unless, or when I should say, I start pushing higher threes rating this season. I might switch to Shockwave if the need arises. In our level 75 tier, Safeguard still really is the only one that is worth your time, since Mass Spell Reflection still replaces your Spell Reflection, and Vigilance is really more of a PvE talent in my opinion. Safeguard still is the best one for allowing at least a little bit of utility, and a little bit of, I suppose, just aid and support to your teammates and things of that sort. It does help with your mobility as well, being able to dart across the map to your ally if needed, but it's definitely something you're going to want to save to help save your allies if you can. Because again, so many of our abilities now are down like that. So luckily, Rally and Cry, it does still affect all raid and party members, but between that and Safeguard, that's really all the utility you really have to bring to the table, unless you're able to put good pressure on a target and peel that way. In our level 90 tier, the bummer with these three, of course, is still the same problem with the level 15 tier, I believe, and that is that none of these are really any better than the other, which is kind of nice, I guess, because you can kind of pick whichever one you want, but again, it just kind of sucks because it's kind of a boring tier. I've been picking Bladestorm just because I am enjoying the utility and of it just not being able to be stunned or anything of that sort, or CC'd. I just enjoy that extra utility. The damage is decent for it. I can't try to play that off and say that it's a garbage talent for damage. It really is. If you can get a good some cooldowns on it, Zerker buffs or whatever, just line your cooldowns right. I've had some success with it. That's really the only way to say it. I feel like it does pump out a decent amount of damage. It's still on a 1 minute cooldown, so you really not too bad there. Same with Bloodbath. Bloodbath is nice on that 1 minute cooldown. The extra bleeds are good, especially because they changed it up a little bit with multi-strike, since it reads that for the next 12 seconds your melee damage, abilities, and their multi-strikes deal 30% additional damage as a bleed over 6 seconds, while bleeding targets move 50% slower. So it's a snare, it's a slow, it's a slow I should say, and the fact that it procs off of your multi-strikes as well is quite nice. So again, having that extra bleed up and only on a minute cooldown is super good itself. Avatar is a ton of fun for BGs, but I don't think it'll have much use in Arena because that cooldown is pretty long. The duration of it is good though, 24 seconds, 20% additional damage for 24 seconds is good. And it does remove all roots and snares, but just that 3 minute cooldown is still a little bit too steep to justify taking it over Bloodbath or Bladestorm in arenas. This is another one that has me a little bit befuddled because I really didn't see anger management being the tier of, or the talent of choice for arms. And I haven't tested this much because I really have been playing a lot of Gladiator stance, so I'm looking forward to how this will play out in the arena season. I will probably be fiddling around with this a lot for capping 2s and just capping points for the week and things of that sort, and just goofing off with friends. Maybe I'll just queue for some skirmishes later and see how these go. But I really anticipate a Ravager being the go-to talent, simply because it does increase the parry chance. But Siegebreaker in of itself is still interesting to me. Siegebreaker is one of those talents I really want to be good and I really want it to work. The problem is it really doesn't do very good damage, I don't think. But again, so far, but I've also heard some people saying that they actually have been having some decent success with it, at least in BGs. So I'll probably give it a try and see what happens. I mean, nothing to lose, right? Especially because I want it to work really bad. But anger management, I've seen a lot of warriors running with, arms warriors, I should say, those that are still holding on to the dream. Every 30 rage you spend reduces the remaining cooldown of several of your abilities by a second. I mean, you really can't argue with reducing the cooldowns. Anger management definitely could make Avatar viable. I mean, it really, if you want to play that way and if you want to look at it that way. So there's a lot of potential there. I mean, this really does help offset the lack of abilities that arms warriors will have to use. So that's kind of quite nice. Ravager's still cool, looks cool, especially because it changes the animation on the weapon based on what you have equipped. So that's kind of the state that arms is in. Of course, at this point now, we're going to be talking about Gladiator stance. Hate it or love it, it's here to stay. Hopefully it won't get nerfed too hard. Because it is doing very well. Even though we did get hit with a little bit of a nerf this past Tuesday, reducing the damage of our Shield Slam and our Revenge by 20% each, which is kind of a bummer. Those are two of our major abilities, but overall it really only affects your total damage output by about 4 to 5%, give or take, from what I'm understanding. So it's not too big of a nerf, like end game wise and like big picture. It's really not the like end of the world. Of course, Gladiator Stance is the level 100 talent that you have to take in order for this to work, or else you're just playing plain prot spec, which still has this place. I feel everyone needs a good flag carrier, so if you're playing diehard prot spec, more power to you. Level 15 again, same principle. I just prefer the 12-second charge over the double time or the stun. And rage regeneration still, unfortunately, the only way to go. Heavy repercussions, I feel. Shield slam deals an additional 30% damage while shield block or shield charge is active. And that's pretty ruthless itself, because shield charge itself already buffs your damage. So it's like that on top of that. I mean, just baseline having shield charge active, 25%, plus your heavy repercussions, that's an additional 55% of damage coming out of your shield slam alone, which again is worth it. Sudden death, not even worth looking at for Gladiator Stance, again still with the 10% proc, and again not pooling any extra rage into that execute, just isn't worth it. Unyielding strikes, this one is what a lot of people were using at level 90 after the changes swapped over, because heroic strike was hitting so hard. I was using this one leveling up pretty hard, and I feel like it still has its place, but heavy repercussions is just superior at endgame. I feel just those gnarly shield slams, throwing out some of those 45, 50k shield slams already that I've seen is just like, I can't argue with that. I'm loving it too much, so that's why I went with heavy repercussions. Stormbolt, still the talent of choice in Gladiator Stance, I feel, for the same reasons we addressed in Arms. Same thing with Safeguard. Avatar, Bloodbath, or Bladestorm, either one of these, same thing, have option of going with. Really, Avatar I do like for protection, or for Gladiator Stance. It's fun, I like the extra buff to the damage, especially in BGs, just goofing off, but I've had a lot of success with Bloodbath, and if you find yourself being CC'd way too often, if you can time it right to use that preemptively to prevent being CC'd, Bladestorm is a good choice as well. And then of course with your level 100 talent, you've already spec'd into Gladiator's Resolve, so no point in talking about that. The talents, or the glyphs I should say, that I've had the most success with, and I feel like will be here to stay, is Shield Slam. Shield Slam is definitely the one that is a must, simply because it dispels a magical effect. That is a big deal, and since there's so few HOTS and magical effects, because of the ability pruning, you add a lot of utility, and it just buffs the kit that you bring to the table for your arena team. It actually makes you more than just a damage class, but you're able to get out there and get some dispels out as well. Since your Shield Slam is already on a 5.78 cooldown, if you've got the right haste and things like that and all that, that's nice to be able to just dispel, especially with HOTS and things like that, magical bubbles, all that good stuff. So Glyph of Shield Slam, definite way to go. I have been using Blitz a lot as of recently, but I feel like I might actually go back to Bull Rush, just because I do like that extra rage after a charge personally, and then again, that's just my personal play style. But having two targets rooted is quite nice as well, and I can see that having its place in an arena over a BG, just because again you're bringing a little bit more utility and things like that to your team. So anything like that will make you a better player and more of an asset to your team rather than a liability, again, just from my experience. Of course, hindering strikes just reduces the movement speed of targets hit by your heroic strike by 50%. Root Interruption is still a decent glyph. I could see that being decent. Spell Reflection is a good one. I like it personally. Reduces the cooldown by 5 seconds. But I do encourage you to mess around with it and play around with it and see what you have success with. Play off your arena partner's strengths and weaknesses and things like that that they bring to the table. Before we end the video, I suppose we should talk to you about the glyphs for arms. I realized I neglected to talk about that, so let's hit that up. There really wasn't too much of another option. Wait a second. Why? Never mind. There was an option. This is what happened. Why is this not there? Well, that's what's wrong. I knew there was something wrong. This is the must. Glyph of Rallying Cry. While Rallying Cry is active, you also gain 20% leech, healing you for 20% of all damage and healing you cause. So that in of itself is a must, just because again it does buff your survivability as arms. And there's no other way around it. You just need it. I mean, bottom line, I feel like because our defensives are so low that I can't justify not doing it. Glyph of Bull Rush, just because arms does suffer a little bit with rage generation. I do like that extra 15 rage for the charge. And Glyph of Die by the Sword, while it's active, using Wild Strike causes or increases its duration by 0.25 seconds, and using Mortal Strike increases its duration by 2 seconds. So I'm a fan of that, because again, just it increases our survivability. I feel like it's a bummer having to glyph entirely for defensive and keeping yourself alive, because I would love to keep using Root Interruption, or I'd love to be able to use Shattering Throw, because I miss it, because Paladins are a pain in the butt. But just keeping these two in here I feel like is an essential for keeping myself alive and making myself less of a liability, even though that's not really going to happen as an arms warrior right now. So that's kind of the state of warriors. Expect to see a lot of Gladiator Stance warriors in the arena as we move closer and closer day by day to the arena season starting up. It's inevitable. Again, I know I'm playing it. A lot of the warriors I've talked to and seen on YouTube and streaming, they're planning on playing it. I can definitely say some of the predictions I made for arms I can gladly say I was right about, but definitely caught off guard by a couple of the other ones, mostly being Taste for Blood and Anger Management being the talents that people chose. When I was going through beta, like, I had no use for them, and I didn't see people using them, and I didn't potentially really see anybody ever using them, but now we're in a place where we are, so that's okay. It's a bummer because it doesn't really make the playstyle any more dynamic, but we do what we have to do to survive and keep ourselves as relevant as possible. So let me know in the comment section what you think. Are you planning on still playing your warrior through this expansion? Are you planning on giving it a try? Are you holding on to the dream? I know I've already invested just way too much time and just love into this class. This is my class. This is my dude. I mean, this is me. This represents me in an online fashion, so I can't just give up on it. I don't know. Maybe that's just me. And that's okay. Everyone has their moments. Everyone's class goes through seasons where they are just overpowered, or where they're subpar, where they're just good, and when they're absolute rubbish. And I guess it was just time for warriors again. So, all that to say, hopefully you guys are looking forward to the arena season starting up again. Probably planning on doing a quick, if I can get the footage for it, I want to get a little mini-tage, getting the adrenaline pumping for the arena season starting up. See if I can get some of that recorded and put up on the channel, maybe for Monday's video or something. We'll see how that goes. But other than that, that should about do it. As always, thanks for watching, and I'll catch you next time.